Welcome back. Now we continue off with the conversations. The Namibian Organization of Youth with Disabilities is the only youth organization that advocates and works towards achieving equality and equity solely for youth with disabilities in all societal systems in Namibia. Now, in light of the World Disability Day, which was commemorated annually on the 3rd of December, the Namibian Organization of Youth with Disabilities will host a national conference on youth with disabilities and elect their regional representatives as from the 12th to the 16th of December 2002 in the Otjozondjupa Region. And for more details on this, I'm now joined by the program officer responsible for youth from UNFPA, Kakuna Venokulavo, and Orban Moluti, the chairperson of the Namibian Organization of Youth with Disabilities. Mrs. Kakuna, as well as Mr. Orban, a very good evening and welcome to the Daily Roundup.
Good evening to you.
Mr. Orban.
Good evening, thank you.
All right. How are you guys feeling this evening?
Very well, thank you.
All right. Mr. Orban, let's start with you. Briefly speak to us on why there was a need to establish an organization with a focus on youth with disabilities and how you have fared in your target of being a voice for the youth with disabilities.
Yes, once again, thank you very much for having us. So as you correctly alluded, I am the chairperson of the Namibian Organization of Youth with Disabilities. So the Namibian Organization of Youth with Disabilities was established in 2013 with the help of the National Youth Council and some very proactive young people. So what we have noticed is that when we are advocating for youth issues, there is a gap. Because when you're speaking of youth issues in general, youth with disability issues now then again become a little bit different. So we felt the need to establish an organization which will speak directly to issues of youth with disabilities. So since its inception, the organizations had a little bit of struggles in the beginning, trying to get on our feet and trying to ensure that we advocate and do our work properly. I think one of the main challenges was the financial aspect of things, but then since we've had the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, on board, together with National Youth Council, and of course the Ministry of Youth, they have been very supportive in giving us technical support and in many times financial support. So far, the three have managed to help us arrange a national congress. This took place in 2019 December in Swakopmund, where we elected a national board. This board is the one that is spearheading everything at the moment, chaired by myself. Also, we have managed to put together a 3-year strategic plan for the organization. In fact, this strategic plan will be launched in Rietfontein in the Otjozondjupa Region next week at the conference.
All right. Now, Mr. Muluti, while we're still on you, kindly share with us some of the achievable milestones that NOYD has carried out since its inception.
Yes, so besides the conferences and the Congress, I mean, besides the Congress, the elective Congress to elect a national board, and also plus establishing a strategic plan, which I think is a very important milestone because many organizations do not have a strategic plan. And in terms of knowing where you want to go and how exactly you want to get there, you have to have something comprehensive in paper so that you can properly put it into action. So that already has been a milestone on its own. And besides that, I think in terms of work on the ground that we have done, we have actually been working a lot with students. We realized that we have a large number of youth that drop out or that do not actually get the required amount of points to move from the grade 12 level, or in this case now I think the grade 11 level. So we have been working with the National Disability Council to ensure that these people are enrolled in alternative education spaces like the NAMCOLs and other colleges. So like we said, it's quite a young organization. I think with the help of all our partners on board, the Ministry of Youth, the National Youth Council and the UNFPA, I think we are establishing a relationship that will actually be very beneficial for youth with disabilities, especially in terms of our strategic plan that we have developed. It's quite precise. We know what we want. We know who we want to target, and yes, just we hope to do work that will improve the lives of my fellow youth with disabilities out there.
All right, all right. Now, Ms. Vanakulava, let's hear from you. What is the role of the UNFPA when it comes to people, the young people living with disabilities, and also just your role when it comes to the conference that's coming up?
Thank you so much for that question. And at UNFPA, really our mandate is really one of our areas to ensure that young people's potential is fulfilled. And when we talk of young people, we mean and we include the young persons with disability. They are not left behind. So in terms of NOYD and the support that we've been providing to them, as Auburn has already alluded to, mainly being technical and both financial in some instances. In terms of our role when it comes to the organization for persons with young persons with disability, really is to really ensure that they are mainstreamed in all our activities and programs that we do for young people. Like he already mentioned in the beginning, what necessitated the formation of the organization is that the challenges or the issues or programs that target youth are not really different or unique from other youth that are not with disabilities, but there's been a lot of gaps in terms of, especially when it comes to issues of accessibility, issues of equitable distribution of, opportunities, for example. And this is merely attributed to the fact that, a youth who's not with disability and the one that is having a disability, usually their opportunities and chances or their ability to access services and opportunities are really different. So us at UNFPA, with our mandate of ensuring that every young person's potential is fulfilled, we then, with the request from the organization, of course, provided, or we still provide, the technical and financial support to ensure that the organization is up and running. It meets the requirements that a youth organization should ascribe to. And in terms of programs, for example, we have programs that are tailor-made to really suit or that respond to the young people with disability.
All right.
And obviously,
Okay. Now, Auburn, what necessitated the national conference that is slated to take place on the 13th to the 15th of this month? And perhaps just touch on some of the targeted issues that will be discussed.
Yes, so I think the main reason for the conference is to establish regional structures, and by regional structures I mean representatives of the organizations in all 14 regions. So not only is this a requirement for youth organizations when applying for certain programs and trying to mainstream with, for example, the National Youth Council and other young people's organizations, but this is also going to ensure that young people have a voice, because issues at in Khomas region or at the level of Windhoek do not necessarily speak together with issues in Zambezi. They have their different issues. So although we have general issues like on accessibilities, mainstreaming of education, and all these issues, they are also particular issues in the region. So we want to ensure that young people with disabilities represent themselves at regional level, and then all these issues are taken up at national level, and hopefully we established the right connections, whether at government level or with our development partners, to ensure that that these issues are resolved in the long run. So besides the restructuring or the electing of representatives in the region, we also want to ensure that we sort of capacitate our young people. For a long time, this has been something that has been missing, because when programs of empowering young people have been crafted, many times we forget young people with disabilities.
All
So we
right.
want to also bring aspect to the Congress, to the conference, ensure that we educate them on their rights, on the United Nations Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disability, and also ensure that they are empowered enough to go and lead their regions and represent their regions properly.
All right. Now, Ms. Vinokulavo, finally, overall, what changes need to be put in place, be it in policies, societies, or work environments, or even the usage of language that you'd say would better the lives of youth with disabilities?
A lot has been done as a country. We've fared fairly well in terms of really inclusivity and taking the persons with disabilities along. But a lot still needs to be done. For example, you would see that most of our infrastructure, for example, the buildings, some were built a long time ago and they are still not disability friendly, or they are inaccessible to the persons with disability, this obviously including the young people with disability. The other one really that needs to be improved, or what we can do as office bearers, as organizations, as institutions, and Oben lightly also touched on it, is issues of, how when we talk of young people programs or development, how many times we put them in that broader perspective, but we need to zoom in into issues that, like, imagine coming up with a document or revising a document to make provision for also putting these documents in Braille. That way we know that we've also catered for youth who has a disability in terms of visually impairment, issues of really having sign language interpreters during events, or during, these dialogues that we usually have in our communities. These are some of the small issues that are really sometimes forgotten, but if we could really make sure that every time we have activities, every time we have engagements, we remember these small things, like really having a sign language interpreter, having documents translated into Braille. And of course, you spoke of the issue of language. We have a project that just ended, the UNPRPD, which really looked at and had a focus on really sensitizing the community in terms of the language when it comes to persons with disabilities. For example, one common one that we see most of the time, we refer as persons living with disabilities, and the correct terminology actually is persons with and not living with disability. So these are some of those small issues that we can really work on day to day as institutions, as individuals, and as, office bearers and community at large.
All right. Orpan, Ms. Kakunavali, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we wish you all the best with the coming up elections.
Yes,
Thank you so much for having us.
All right. That was Oben Muluti, who is the chairperson of the Namibian Organization of Youth with Disabilities, as well as Ms. Kakuna Venokulavo, that is, of course, who is responsible for the youth, the program officer responsible for the youth from the UNFPA, talking to us about the youth with disabilities, and also just touching on the National Conference on Youth Disabilities, as they will be choosing their regional representatives from the 12th until the 16th of December 2002. And unfortunately, that brings us to the end of tonight's show, the Daily Roundup. We'll be back again on Wednesday,